Conservatives are calling this a defining moment for President Trump if it passes the Senate. This legislation would be his first major victory after failing to reform his signature campaign promise to repeal and replace Obamacare. White House correspondent Mark Irons followed the president to Capitol Hill today, where he rallied lawmakers. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. The president returned here to the White House after successfully lobbying House Republicans, calling it a big step. He needs the full Congress to pass tax reform to save his agenda. Lawmakers agree it would be a catastrophe if it fails.
It's a disaster if it doesn't go through, for the country, for the party, for the president, for everybody. It's a disaster if it doesn't get through.
I talked to several House Republicans as they emerged from their meeting with President Trump. They each told me he needs a big victory on tax reform.
Describe to me how important this is going to be for his agenda, for the president.
Oh, huge. And I mean, in retrospect, I wish we would have done this one first.
President Trump's trip to Capitol Hill shows how important this bill is to him. For weeks at the Capitol, it's been all hands on deck as Trump's top advisors lobbied lawmakers. EWTN News Nightly witnessed Kellyanne Conway and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin last week standing alongside senators.
We want to invigorate and inspire all those would-be job holders and would-be entrepreneurs in this country.
Romina Bacha, the Deputy Director for Economic Policy at the Heritage Foundation, says this legislative battle is different. The president has been much more engaged.
This is clearly an issue he cares deeply about, that he knows about, and as a businessman understands the importance of. And I think that's really strengthened the president's hand in working with Congress to make tax reform a reality.
She calls tax reform the single most important issue that President Trump and Republicans can accomplish this year.
Especially since Republicans failed to repeal the Affordable Care Act earlier this year, this makes tax reform that much more important. Otherwise, you're looking at a potentially failed first year, which no president wants to face.
President Trump still needs to convince senators to pass tax reform before he can move on to his other agenda items, including infrastructure and welfare reform. Lauren.
White House correspondent Mark Irons. Thank you, Mark.